Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin Doerr. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Marqeta. Today, we're here to talk to Will Reeves, the CEO and founder of Fold, a super interesting startup that's working on combining cryptocurrencies with cards. We're going to talk a bit about both the embedding of digital currencies with payments and some other areas. I first want to introduce Will Reeves. Will, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you came to found Fold?
Absolutely. Thank you, Kevin. It's good to be here. My background has been primarily building products in the payment space, specifically for consumers. How do we introduce new behaviors, new technologies that really haven't existed before, and introduce them to a mass market? And while at the same time, just kind of solving some major problems. And I had the privilege of working at some of the largest, most innovative tech companies in Silicon Valley. I've been an entrepreneur myself. But really, with Fold, I stumbled upon the kind of confluence of my skill sets, consumer and payments, with my passion, which is introducing Bitcoin to the wider world. And so, very quickly narrowed in on combining payments and how we can integrate Bitcoin into the wider ecosystem and provide value to people every day. And so, we very quickly narrowed in on how can we distribute Bitcoin to as many people as possible in the shortest amount of time in a way that's fun and delivers value for them every single day. And so that's kind of the genesis of where Fold comes from.
Thanks, Will. The first product from Fold is a rewards crypto card, right? There's lots of different threads in cryptocurrency that you could have followed or different paths. And how did you come about to rewards being the sort of fundamental part that you predicated the product on?
When I look at building a company is not a simple thing, and so you really have to look at what is my highest leverage opportunity that matches with my skill set, with my team's skill set, and what do we actually want to build. And so for us, it was really clear that we wanted to do something that would introduce Bitcoin to a much wider set of people, much more diverse audience that it traditionally has been. And we actually first started off with the product that allowed you to spend your Bitcoin initially. What we quickly found out is that the market for that is really about the people who have Bitcoin, and that's a really actually it's an increasing amount of people, but it's not as large as it could be. Ours was about how do we introduce this to brand new audiences that could benefit. And so instead of the spending, we looked at the rewarding. So cashback is one of the most ubiquitous forms of rewards and something that's a part of almost 90% of people's lives. And so we thought, what would happen if we swapped out airline miles and hotel points for something that on average has increased 200% year over year in value, and that would allow people to get exposure to Bitcoin without actually putting their hard-earned money there, so not as much risk, and do it in a way that's very easy and passive, that they can kind of have an experience with earning Bitcoin on a daily basis. And so we quickly found that the rewards mechanism was a wonderful way to distribute Bitcoin to a new and diverse set of people.
Yeah. Really interesting, particularly around sort of the Bitcoin audience, right? So many holders more reluctant to actually use Bitcoin as part of the currency for transactions. Are there other macro trends that you saw that made this particular approach to the card more successful? Were there other macro trends that were sort of feeding into that right now?
Yeah, what we saw is that, if you just look at even through this pandemic, it's something like 70+% of millennials ditched their travel rewards cards because of the pandemic. Beyond that, we saw a much longer fact that airline mile programs, hotel point programs, all of the traditional legacy rewards programs are constantly being devalued over and over, becoming more limited, giving you a lot less. The mile doesn't quite go as far as a mile used to. And so what we saw is a wonderful opportunity to introduce an asset that would, instead of devalue over time, would on the whole increase in value. So how do we make it so that we're increasing one's purchasing power? And so we thought that between the macro trends of the devaluation of existing rewards programs at the same time where we are in a macroeconomic climate that points to Bitcoin being a great point to thrive amidst global turmoil, was a perfect opportunity to start introducing this to the wider world. People are starting to ask more questions, and they're really curious about what this asset can do for them. And so Fold really tries to create a small experience with it that then can initiate a much longer relationship with Bitcoin. It's fun that we have users that have been earning with us since Bitcoin was around $3,000, which means that looking back on a lot of those purchases they made are now free because of how much the appreciation of Bitcoin happened over the time. And so that really starts to initiate a kind of journey for them about, okay, why is this money working this way? And starts asking a little bit more questions, which ultimately leads them down what many in the Bitcoin community call the Bitcoin rabbit hole.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's great. I think it's super smart. You're riding on top of something that people are already habituated to in terms of rewards, but changing the nature of it into something that's more meaningful long term. And for the record, my Twitter feed is constantly full of people sort of celebrating their last spin. So it's out there. I'm going to throw in a couple actually here. So what about other forms of cryptocurrency? Like when can I get Cardano? When can I get my favorite, fill in the blank kind of cryptocurrency? How are you thinking about bringing more on, or are you thinking about bringing more on?
It's a good question. We get it, asked quite a bit. The real fact is that if you are what Fold is trying to do is introduce Bitcoin to more crypto to more and more people. And really, when you look at outside of the world of kind of crypto insiders or people who are already in this space, Bitcoin is the thing. It is the Coca-Cola. It is the household brand name. It's the one that has the longest standing tradition. It has had, in my view, the most product market fit out of all of them. There's a lot of experiments being run on a few others. But if Fold is really trying to introduce it to a wider group of people that haven't been exposed yet, we have found that keeping it very focused and very simple allows us to go much further in the product experience and also make a much clearer message for our users about what this is. Now, that's not to say that later down the line that something might change and we might see a breakout and one of the other projects may start to fulfill some of those requirements. But as of now, keeping it very focused, there's already so much. When people look at the space of cryptocurrency, they often get put off because it's maybe too confusing or there's too many to choose from, and it's hard for people to understand, what is my place and where is the real value coming from. And so what Fold tries to do is really focus the conversation and bring it to something that we know is going to deliver value immediately. And we can't say the same about the others right now, but that's not to say that others may not get there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Staying on the theme of simplicity, aside from some of the bigger exchanges and maybe one or two of the super apps that are doing things in this direction, one of the things you're doing is making this more accessible. You're basically taking down the barriers. Getting a debit card is a normal thing. Moving money into that debit card is a normal thing. Using it for transactions is a normal thing. The thing that's different here is that the rewards that are coming from that. How do you think about sort of the long-term accessibility of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency through Fold? What are the things that are sort of top of mind for you there?
Yeah, we see that services like Fold and others are just tearing down barriers from between the world of traditional finance and the world of crypto finance, which we believe that at a certain point those worlds are going to be very much blended as we move forward. And so when Fold is looking at the future, we really started with really one use case. How do we meet users and people where they are today? Let's not ask them to change a single behavior. A debit card looks like just like any other debit card, checking account, just like any other checking account. But now you're starting to earn Bitcoin. And now what happens is you start to think about, okay, well, maybe I'm starting to learn more about this thing. Maybe I think this deserves more of a position in my portfolio, of my investment portfolio, or maybe I want to start using it, or maybe I need to send a remittance to somewhere around the world, and maybe Bitcoin could be a good tool for that. And so Fold is really working on that first use case of let's get you some Bitcoin. Let's help you understand it and educate it in a really risk-free, low anxiety environment. And then we get to introduce you to other uses of it. So buying more of it as an investment, helping you send it to others. So you can use the actual peer-to-peer nature of Bitcoin, and all of these will start to be added to the Fold product as you see it continue to be built out. But really, we are here and see ourselves as really at the top of the funnel. Part of Fold's goal is to overwhelm all the other Bitcoin companies with more demand from new consumers that are entering the space. Like, that is a win for Fold. And we will make sure that we're keeping up with that development of our user base by continuously releasing really high quality new features that open up brand new use cases for them that previously were not available.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I like the example of so when you got started with the price of Bitcoin and the increase in value of that coin over time, and how that keeps you wedded to a particular card or a particular program. I think that's important for people versus some of the other mechanisms for rewards that have been waning over time in terms of value. Selfishly, we work together. Full disclosure, I love that. That's great. I'd love to talk a little bit about the card issuing part and the role that Marqeta plays, and maybe hear a little bit about some of the things that have helped you leverage getting to market, getting out there, running the programs from a Marqeta program perspective.
Yeah, I think it's apparent both from our support tickets and just from an outsider's view. It seems relatively simple, right? You launch a debit card, get a checking account up and running. But once you've seen the other side and built it, it's an incredibly complicated endeavor that involves not just Fold and Marqeta, but a whole host of partners that need to be moving in sync to both bring this to market, to approve it, to sustain it, to maintain this whole program, which in the past has been an entire job in and of itself, just to bring a simple debit product to market. And so in the past, if Fold was going to launch this same product without Marqeta or before Marqeta existed, 90% of our development resources, growth resources, support would have to be dedicated to just bringing the card to market. And that's leaving behind what Fold's core mission is, which is the entire part about how do we make Bitcoin and rewards more fun, more accessible, and more engaging. And so partnering with Marqeta to us was a decision not only to launch a really quality product out there, but it was to say, we have a partner who has perfected the issuing and management of a card program experience. What that now allows my team to do is be laser focused on a new value proposition that we're bringing to market, which is the entire rewards layer. How can we make our earning Bitcoin and rewards more fun than they've ever had before, more rewarding than they've ever had before? And so if we had to be down building and issuing this product ourselves, that would only take away from the gains and the progress we could make on what we consider our core value proposition. And so for us, Marqeta was a really obvious answer and an obvious partner for us, simply because it allowed us to move much faster on the piece that we consider ourselves experts at and what we believe is going to bring new value to the world instead of really reinventing the wheel per se.
Thanks for that, Will. As a product person and a former developer, it warms my heart to know that you guys are focused on features, right? You're focused on building out the experience and not having to worry about some of the underlying plumbing and connectivity to some of the legacy infrastructure that Marqeta brings to the table. So it's good to hear that. We certainly enjoyed watching you guys grow and build and create these use case scenarios. That's what our team is about. It's like, how do we enable more and more of these really interesting use case scenarios to start to push the boundaries? So I appreciate that. Maybe we can talk a little bit about some of the details in there. You guys are issuing a physical card. I got that one. You got a virtual card and things like that. Maybe talk a little bit about sort of the tokenization, the digital wallet side of things, even through working with merchants, which is also part of what you guys do, is making sure that those cards are working and the rewards are working in that context. Maybe talk a little bit about that part of the process and how that's going for you.
We see consumer behaviors rapidly changing, right? We are trying to make these changes too. And so when we have been working with our card issuing program, actually many of our users don't even use a physical card. They use their mobile wallets, and with that, it's now important for us to be able to create an experience that caters to that and that preserves quality across wherever they're spending, however they want to spend. And so for us, having that freedom and that quality back end that we get to rely on, certainly number one, helps our users have a much better experience, but us have a far less headaches in terms of operational oversight of this. So one of the interesting things the way Fold works is that every time you spend, whether it's on your card, on your digital wallet, you are now you get a push notification immediately in real time to your phone. Once the charge goes through, you're spinning for a reward. And so it's really important for us to be able to respond to these signals wherever and however our users are spending, because it's really key to that user experience that we're building. And so for us, really there is no alternative for this. It either has to be there or we're going to have to build it. And so the fact that it is out of the box with Marqeta and comes enabled from the start has been a huge benefit for us, and I think has allowed us to bring to market an experience that really hasn't existed before. So when we were reviewing this program before we made our choice in Marqeta with other programs, others didn't really understand why we needed real-time and instantaneous access to transactions and this to be kind of synced across wherever payment method they're using. So for us, it really unlocked something that now we get to say we bring something completely unique to the market.
Yeah, you're hitting on the, how our APIs work, right? So, you're calling us, we're helping with the transaction approval process. And then once that transaction closes, we're able to sling those webhooks back to you so you can provide that use case experience to your customers. I guess, the good question is, where do we go from here? What else can we provide in the real-time transaction data to be able to help those, to help the customer experience broaden, be more informative and rich? Are there things that you'd like to see from webhooks that we should be talking about?
Well, I think once you start to really look into what possibilities this opens up, it's not just helping our rewards experience, but it expands it from merchant specific offers. We are increasingly getting merchants here who want to sponsor rewards when people spend at their storefront. So now that we can respond not only in real time to a transaction happen, but exactly what merchant it happened with, what time of day, I'll use all of these signals to create a really comprehensive, immersive rewards experience that just wouldn't be possible. And then on the other side, it also helps with anti-fraud in a big way. So one of the cool things about Fold is that every time you swipe your card, you're getting a push notification to your phone. So you definitely know when somebody has maybe wrongly has access to your card details, and because you're getting a push to your phone immediately on that transaction, that helps us get in front of fraud much faster. And for a card operating program like this, that's incredibly valuable for us because fraud is definitely one of the major concerns about operating a card program.
Yeah, I think that's right. As a consumer, I didn't think I would appreciate getting the immediate real-time transaction confirmation for a particular transaction as much as I do. And I think that's because we've been habituated to expect or depend upon the algorithms that are running at the card networks themselves, which use a massively complicated set of assumptions to determine whether the transaction that just happened on a particular card was potentially fraudulent or not. And so those come out of necessity less frequently, right? And only when there's exceptions thrown in the system. And I really, really like the idea of having that confirmation that transaction was a good one, it was mine, and I have the option of interacting with it if I need to. I think that's an important part of sort of the zero trust world that we're entering into with so much fraud. I want to kind of stay on the real time sort of conversation that customers have with applications and things like that, and maybe get your thoughts on some of the different transaction and settlement networks that are starting to emerge, particularly around cryptocurrency. When we talk about things like the Lightning Network or other things that are sort of coming forth, is Fold starting to think about where that takes us in terms of real-time settlement and also lowered cost in terms of transactions for cryptocurrency?
Yeah, Fold is has been one of the earliest contributors and builders on the Bitcoin Lightning Network. And for anyone who may not be familiar with the Lightning Network, Bitcoin as a protocol for transacting is great for very large amounts that don't require immediate settlement. Every transaction takes roughly 10 minutes to settle. The Lightning Network is a protocol that's built on top of Bitcoin that preserves all of its founding principles. So, being decentralized, censorship resistant, all of the things that make Bitcoin Bitcoin, the Lightning Network preserves at a layer two, but it brings two different things to the table. Number one, it brings instantaneous settlement, but it also brings the ability for users to interact with each other with very low fees. So it essentially brings Bitcoin a user experience to Bitcoin that feels very much like what people would expect from a legacy or a traditional payment method, right? It should happen instantly and it shouldn't cost much. And that's what the Lightning Network brings. And Fold has been very early on building on the Lightning Network to build it out to be something that it could be mass adopted and have hundreds of thousands, millions of people transacting on it, just like they might on the Visa network. Um, the Lightning Network truly does bring things that really don't exist in the legacy world, and it's primarily around instant final settlement. So
Mhm.
uh, there in the world of Lightning and Bitcoin, there is no possibility or thing like a chargeback or a dispute. Once a transaction is initiated, it is final, and it cannot be reversed unless the receiving party actually just reverses it themselves. And so, while that has some drawbacks, it also brings kind of a balance to the existing legacy system with a new system. So now we can actually look at, hey, what is the best type of transaction layer for this specific transaction? Do we need a dispute process, or does that really open up more fraud and negative vectors than we would like to be open to? Um, it also is natively international. There is no barrier for you transacting with anybody anywhere in the world. And
Yeah.
these things are pretty fundamental and foundational things that kind of it's just not how our system works. And so it really takes a little bit to think of what that really means for payments, that it doesn't matter if this payment happens in the middle of the night or on a weekend. You can be assured that it will be instantly settle wherever it's sent anywhere in the world. And so those types of properties start to definitely become something that will permeate the rest of the world. The value that that brings is just too high. And so we are
Yeah.
definitely looking at how we can, again, bring the benefits and qualities of Lightning Network to traditional and legacy finance. We think that these things can live together in many ways, and you will see within Fold that you can interact on the Lightning Network, and you can also interact on the Visa network directly within Fold, and you will get the varying benefits of either one depending on which one you choose.
Yeah. No, thanks for that. I know you guys have been involved from the beginning. There's still a lot to build out there, but we're seeing a lot more use cases and applications being built on top of it. And the relative amount of money moving is still relatively small, $100 billion or something of that nature. That said, I appreciate the answer. I think it's the orchestration. It's not one solution, right? There are multiple solutions depending on the attributes and the parameters you need. I do need safety, certainty, and trust, or I'm 100% certain that this wallet-to-wallet transaction it should happen, needs to happen, and there's no reversing it. And letting businesses and customers decide based on those attributes what transport model they can use or should use allows them just more flexibility. I want it to go fast. I want it immediate, and I want it least cost. That's a great way of thinking about sort of the orchestration, the different rails that could be used in these transactions.
Yeah, I think
You hit upon
really
global a little bit. Oh, go ahead, Will. Sorry.
a good way to think about it is when you go to purchase something and have it shipped to you. You're given an option of, hey, I'll take it no tracking number and have it get here when I do, or I'm going to pay a little bit more. It's going to have a tracking number, maybe some insurance on it, and it would depend on, is this a large transaction? Is this hundreds of thousands of dollars? Is this $100? Is this $1? And there is a world that you can see where all of these different payment rails are kind of abstracted from the user, and the user is really just choosing what types of parameters they want to match the specific transaction at hand. And the more options we have to support various types of transactions, the better user experience, the safer people are going to be, and the more choice that they'll have. And so I think you're spot on that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm excited for us as a community and an industry to bring those to the fore and bring them in a way that, the language, the conventions, the terminology are, they map to the shipping kind of thing. We've taught people over 20 years of e-commerce how to think about that. It's not that complicated anymore, in part because we've abstracted everything away. It's like, do you want UPS? Do you want FedEx? And you just pay the different prices. And I think moving in that direction on financial transactions starts to ease some of the pain from the massive variety of implementations that we see out there. And having paid tuition recently for colleges, having done some shipping things, like just the need to reorient to every one of those transactions and really try to understand, how is this working? What are the fees? When will the money get there? How do I get confirmation that this has happened? It's an incredibly complex thing, even for smaller transactions. And they don't need to be. The cognitive load for that is far too high. In one of the last response we were talking about, Will, around the Lightning, you talked about global a little bit. Certainly, Lightning Network is from the get-go global, and really doesn't. If you're moving cryptocurrency, you're not worried about forex. I think what's interesting here is like, how does Fold think about expanding globally with its current product set?
It's an interesting thing building a company for a community that is already natively global, expects to be able to transact 24/7, and expects things to happen instantaneously. What it means is that even as we're building on the legacy system, we have an expectation from our user base that we need to move beyond that. We need to provide the very things that they love about Bitcoin and Lightning Network. We need to provide that right now with the legacy system, which is not always possible. But for us, it is a guiding light that we do believe that Fold should be global. We should be serving a much larger audience than just the United States, as we are right now. And so we do intend to move into Canada and other regions with the help of Marqeta. But it also means that we are working on embedding some of these other payment methods in there, so that, again, it can really abstract away and really provide that level, that expectation, because we believe that expectation that our users have now is what the world will expect from all financial services very soon. We're basically getting to see it a little bit around the corner, because our users already are living in this world where things are possible that really aren't existing in the legacy world. And so I think internationalization is probably our first one to tackle. The other ones will be a little bit more difficult, but I am confident that we have the right partners to do so.
Okay. No, thanks for that. And we're ready to go wherever you need to go. Just a reminder for folks who are listening or watching, please drop questions for Will and I in the chat if you get a chance, if there's anything you want to talk about or kind of inquire into. Will, I want to go back to the application a little bit itself, sort of the experience for users a little bit. The spin the wheel feature is sort of the big deal here. I'm curious about a couple things. One, how you think about the feature, how the team thinks about iterating and adding things, because you always have the feature problem of how much is too much. The other thing I'm interested in is the extent to which that behavior actually changes transactions for you, right? The frequency of transactions, the selection, because we all know within digital wallets on mobile devices, there's a selection issue, right? Getting that card to the top of the stack consistently. And I'm interested in how you guys are thinking about both the feature side and then how that tracks to sort of the preferred option of Fold as the card for the transaction.
Yeah, when we built Fold, we're actually known primarily for being Bitcoin rewards, but we opted to change rewards entirely. So we did the first thing, which was let's swap out the underlying rewards asset. Bitcoin instead of airline miles and hotel points. And that has done very well. It is we have now put Bitcoin in the hands of many people that would never have had it before. But a thing that is a little bit more subtle about what Fold is doing is also changing the rewards experience. So the act of earning rewards. We feel that rewards have been really broken for a long time. Historically, rewards happen very passively, kind of just builds up in your account that you're not really looking at. It's very personal. So you're not sharing, or you don't see how many rewards you've earned, and you're not sharing it with other people. It's definitely not a social thing. And it's not personalized. It's a thing that's individual to you that you're not really sharing, but it's not personalized to you. And so Fold wanted to say, okay, what would happen if we make rewards at the very center of the financial experience with Fold? That every single thing you do can earn you rewards here and there, from depositing money to spending money to saving money to making a purchase that you hadn't done before, or doing multiple purchases at a merchant. What happens when we create a reward system? It's very active about that, very personalized to you, and that's very social. You saw, if you go through our Twitter account, you'll see our reward system is very social. People share it and are competing and collaborating on how to earn more. And this really kind of was brought to life in our feature that is swipe and spin and win. So every time you swipe the card, you get a push notification, you get to spin, and maybe you're going to get something like 1%, sometimes 100%, sometimes a full Bitcoin. Sometimes it's a multiple on your last 30 days of deposits or on your largest purchase that you've made. And what we've found is that by turning rewards into this very active central experience, it is far more engaging for our users. And we have this really incredible ability to really tweak the rewards program to drive new behaviors. So, we have the guy at the construction site who sits at the front of the taco truck, and he is swiping individually for everyone's meal that's on the construction site, and then they just pay him back peer to peer.
Yeah.
We have people who so for instance, a couple wheels ago, we do every 2 weeks, we kind of change it up to try to see what happens with user behavior. And about 2 weeks ago, we had one that we wanted to test how much can we increase the average ticket size for our users. And before that, I think the average ticket size was somewhere around 50, mid 50s. After that first week, the average ticket size went up to around $77. And for anyone who's running a card program at any volume, to just change the average ticket size that much means that there's something very large happening. And it is all due to the behaviors and the incentives that we're creating. And so, what we believe is that if rewards programs are passive, most are flat rate, you're not really thinking about it, and maybe you'll get a sign-on bonus. What we feel that happens is that as financial services become more and more ubiquitous, the ability to change between new programs here and there and hop between card to card, now that your social network is your bank, your bank is your bank, your everything will become a bank. And so how do we increase loyalty to an individual program? And so that's what Fold has done with this card, is that the more you use the card, the deeper you engage with it, the more you're rewarded from it. And hence we get stickier and stickier customers. Whereas before, rewards programs have been pretty bad at keeping customers involved, because number one, everyone offers the same type of experience, and it doesn't reward those who are truly loyal to you more than others who are just trying to get the quick sign-on bonus or the introductory bonus. And so Fold really tried to say, let's rethink the entire rewards experience, down from the asset, but also from the actual experience of earning them and what inputs do that.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's a great response. I think it also highlights, you're applying, sort of core product management and development approaches, A/B testing and constant growth and focused on the right data, and you're changing. I think that's the other thing about the existing programs or behaviors. They tend to be very static, right? You got a card and it's airline miles, or you got a card and it's something, and it doesn't change. So there's no interest in sort of revisiting. And the extent to which the underlying work you're doing as a product team and an engineering team is changing and making things more interesting, that creates that retention and the need for customers to go back and check and say, hey, what's new now? What's changed? What's to my benefit in terms of the rewards program?
That's it. We really look at one of the things we talk about as our team is what happens when you bring mobile gaming concepts to mobile payments. What happens there? Like we already know that one is incredible at eating up share of attention from people. Like, and how do they do that? How are they able to be so top of mind on a daily basis, on a multiple times per day, at the same time of mobile payments, which normally measures, share of wallet? What happens when we bring these concepts together that equally goes for share of attention as share of wallet? And so what you'll see with Fold users is that the vast majority of our monthly active users are daily actives. And the vast majority of our daily active users are actually using it multiple times per day. And this is something that is kind of foreign to a lot of other fintechs. And it really comes down to, because we are taking this new approach that does keep things fresh, that is bringing these things about, how do we make this fun, accessible for everyone? But to your point, sometimes we overdo it, and we have to, kind of roll back or change direction. But that's really part of the learning process when you're doing something new. And so that's why Fold is really heavily investing in our rewards algorithm. So it's even smarter to an individual. So it responds directly to you. It's not kind of blanketed over across everyone in the program. It's really tailored to the rewards that you want to earn and how you want to earn them. And so the smarter this gets, I think the more powerful that these behaviors that you're seeing with Fold will only get more and more powerful.
Yeah, it's a super positive thing too, right? Because this is activity that your customers are already engaging in, right? We're using our cards for transactions on a regular basis in a wide variety of areas. We're already doing that. We're getting different and better and increasingly personalized rewards. And there is probably, maybe not a nuance, but there's been attention paid to some other gamification techniques applied in other fintech areas that were perhaps less positively inclined, and certainly not calibrated to the individual. And in this case, let's say their level of appropriate risk. But in this case, this basically pushes in the positive direction. You're just getting more value. And whether it's cryptocurrency or other things in the long run, you're increasing that. And frankly, you're increasing your opportunity to gain net wealth. That can't be considered a bad thing. So I see a big difference between the way that gamification and that word gets used in different contexts.
It's exactly right. Before we ship anything, it has to be, is this additive to the user? It has to only be something that is ultimately giving more back to the users than taking away. We do not, when we are not allowed, it's part of our ethos not to, is to deploy a gamification tactic that is ultimately going to be having any kind of negative or extractive value or feature for our users. And so all of it is, how can we deploy these concepts and these things that really do work at changing behavior, but instead it's leaving you with more rewards, more healthy finances, and ultimately a more healthy relationship with your money. That's how we deploy these mechanics for.
Yeah, I totally appreciate that. That's great. Well, we've got just a minute or so left. I'd love to dig into the extent that you want to share other use cases that you might be looking to solve for in the coming quarters.
Yeah, we have, when we look at our users, they are a constant fountain of new ideas of what they want, right? The whole neobank movement is really launch with one wedge feature and then figure out how to build the rest of the bank after it. And so for us, we have a very strong voice from our users that we should offer savings account options. Luckily, the world of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin provides some really interesting ways in which we can deploy an idea of a savings account that maybe yields a little bit more than your 0.1% that you might get at your current banking institution. And so we really try to look at what are the value propositions that Bitcoin and cryptocurrency can bring to users that can happen now, that we have the technology to do now and deploy safely, that give us an advantage over the rest of the legacy finance. And so savings account is something you'll be looking at. We will be looking into a credit option to bring to market very soon. And really, it's just about peer to peer. How can we make sure that people can send money to and from each other? All of these things that are almost now considered table stakes with these kind of applications now are going to be coming to fold because now this is what our users want. They want to increasingly bank with us. So we have a lot to build ahead of us.
Terrific. Thanks, Will. Hey, I want to thank you for your time this morning too. Congrats on the success so far. Best wishes for everything that you're doing and we're doing together. Really appreciate your time and just some great responses on where Fold is going. And thanks everyone for joining us. Please stay with us on the opportunity stage for more great content. Thanks very much. We'll see you soon.